All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. So Ichigo Kurosaki, right? You know, one of the OG, part of the Trinity, you know, that old school protagonist, right? So there's a lot of people on the internet, right, that are talking shit about the guy. Like, you know, he's weak as shit, you know, he's like just sucks after Soul Society arc. He got nothing but weaker. And, you know, during the entire Wake Mundo arc, he basically just takes like 12 different L's, right? So, and yeah, he takes 12 different L's, but you know, there's a lot of people who don't actually give him credit for actually what he's actually done, you know, what he's actually capable of doing. Most people think he tops out after, like, you know, Grimmjow, that basically he gets wrecked by anybody above his rank, which, you know, he does, but he's a lot stronger than what actually most people think. And there's actually a lot of evidence to actually support that.
What do you mean?
And the version of Ichigo I actually want to talk about is the Wako Mundo Ichigo, you know, the arrancar arc version. And it's hilarious because actually a lot of people actually think Ichigo over this period of time actually got weaker. Like, they actually think he's weaker than when he was in the Soul Society arc. And it's actually just not true. So Ichigo actually in this art is really nuts. He's actually really powerful. Anyway, to recap real quick, because, you know, everybody's like, he took L's from everybody. He took an L from Yami. He took an L from Grimmjow. Then he took an L from Ukiura. Then Grimmjow again. And then he took an L from Nuitora, Tesla. And, you know, he gets an L from Ukiura again.
I mean, my God! How much more can you stink?
And it's like he pretty much just dies, but after he comes back to life, he's actually really, really powerful. He's really strong too, because he actually manages to cut Yami, which cutting Yami is actually a ridiculous feat. He says Yami is actually stated to be the strongest Espada. Now, say what you want about the guy, you know, whatever, he's a dumbass, I get it, but he's actually straight up just the strongest Espada based off of Ryatsu. So in just terms of raw power, he's the strongest. Not just by his own statement, but Aizen as well as acknowledges him as the strongest Espada. And it's crazy too, because he actually feels not just second release Ukiura's Ryatsu, but he actually feels Hollow Ichigo, the same Hollow Ichigo that beat up that Ukiura. He felt his Ryatsu and he was just like, hey, I'm gonna go fight that guy and kill him, the one that just killed Ukiura. So the fact that he pretty much thinks he's the strongest Espada is actually a pretty confident statement. Also, considering going off of the feats of just Ukiura alone, and then the fact that, like I said, the Vasta Lorde freaking shit stomped him was freaking crazy. Anyways, like I said, after Ichigo revives, he actually goes down, and not only does he cut Yami, but he actually flips him on his face, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous too, because if you actually go back to the Soul Society arc, and with Kenpachi's statement of, you know, you basically can't cut anybody or damage anybody if your Ryatsu is too low, if there's too much of a gap between you and your opponent, such as when Ichigo tried to actually cut Kenpachi and then it made his hand bleed. So the fact that Ichigo is actually able to damage Yami is nuts. And it comes from Kenpachi too, the statement, the same dude who actually cuts Yami later. It actually makes him actually evolve even further. And it's crazy.
It's like my Uncle Kagi once said, with great power comes great big booty bitch.
And it gets even like crazier too when you think about the fact that not only Ichigo is being suppressed by his Hollow or Zangetsu or his Quincy half or whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter who's actually suppressing him, but the fact that he makes a statement about how his mass felt heavy and he wasn't able to move or fight, you know, necessarily at his full power. And on top of that, he only has a third of his Shiakusho, which, if you guys don't know what that is, that's Ichigo's cloak when he goes into his Bankai. Now, when he goes into his Bankai, he actually makes a statement to Unohana about his Shiakusho, about how it's basically just his Ryatsu when he's in Bankai, and he only had a third of it left, and he still had that much Ryatsu, which Unohana was fucking surprised by that. She was just sitting there like, damn.
Dang.
Guy's got that much Ryatsu, and it's only a third of what he actually has. And like I said before, his Ryatsu, or well, everybody's Ryatsu is related to their overall power. So the fact that he only had a third of his power and he still cut Yami was freaking ridiculous. Now, if you guys don't want to accept that, you know, either Yami's not the strongest Espada, or it's just like Ichigo just cut him, it was just pure luck. It's actually really consistent, like that Ichigo reaches these levels of power. Now, if this isn't enough evidence for you guys as to why Ichigo is just ridiculously strong, you know, besides flipping the fucking zero Espada on his face, being able to cut the dude and all this other shit, Ichigo fights Gin. Now, most people think Gin, you know, he's kind of a joke. You know, he's basically the Itachi of, you know, Bleach and shit like that, and he doesn't really do anything. But Gin is no joke. He's ridiculously powerful. Actually, yeah. Ichigo fights Gin, right? And Gin is pretty nuts because, well, he actually has a certain feat, you know, where he causes Aizen to kind of implode with his Bankai, you know, its ability, which is kind of nuts in itself, and it's actually kind of a really weird feat in itself, because you know, going off the whole Ryatsu statement earlier we were talking about, and the fact that Aizen pretty much does a similar thing where, you know, if your Ryatsu is too low, he can just straight up just negate your hack, which, you know, he does it to Soifone, and, you know, he's done it to other people as well. But yeah, the fact that Gin was also talking about, you know, how he couldn't beat the Aizen, the same one the Soul Reapers were fighting, unless you imply that he actually knew about the whole Hogyoku thing and the fact that he could release and get even more powerful, which, you know, in Aizen's Transcendent state, each time he evolves, it should be more or less a Bankai multiplier on top of what his strength already was. So it's, you know, like I said, it's a whole mess. But yeah, Gin also has various other feats that pretty much just back up what he's capable of doing. One of them is he's able to actually one-shot Hiyori in just a Shikai. Same Hiyori that actually helped Hitsugaya and Lisa fight Hardiba, which, you know, she's the third Espada, which was impressive. He also fights Shinji too, and keep in mind, even amongst these people, he's fighting Vizards and he's doing all this other shit, and it's just, against none of them, he literally sits there and goes, I don't need my Bankai to fight against any of you. Like, none of you are worth it. And out of all people, he shows his Bankai to Ichigo. Not only that, but straight up after he does that, he actually makes a statement about Ichigo after he blocks his Bankai and manages to damage him with his Getsugo, going, you know, he's really impressive and he's only going to improve. And like I said, Gin is no joke. Not only does he fight the Vizards, but he was actually acknowledged by Aizen himself, you know, more or less being one of his generals. Now, being one of Aizen's generals is actually really impressive, because we know based off of the feats with Tosin that they do actually scale above the first Espada, or, well, they should. And the fact that Tosin actually not only needed his Holification amp, but he actually needed to transform on top of that in order to fight Komomura. And the fact that Gin doesn't need any of that to really stand out amongst the Espada, that Aizen basically chose him as a general, you know, just because of what he was already able to do without, you know, receiving an amp from the Hogyoku or Holification or any of that, is ridiculous.
Now that just pisses me off.
And the fact that Ichigo fights him. And this is the same Ichigo, like I said, that actually cut Yami. And on top of that, Ichigo also cut Aizen too. He managed to freaking cut Aizen, the same person we just mentioned that could straight up negate captain level Soul Reapers with his hacks. Like, he could just straight up just negate their hacks and freaking one-shot at all of them. And Ichigo's able to damage him and he can fight Gin. So it's pretty consistent to say that Ichigo should at least be on Espada level 1, if not 0 level. Maybe even higher, because if you think about the fact that he keeps getting Zenkais from every time he fights. So he's only continuously getting stronger. If you don't want to acknowledge that, that's fine. But like I said, he should at least be Espada level 1 level at this point. So yeah. He's pretty strong. Thanks for watching.